it's 6:30 and we'll go ahead and get started because I know your guys' time is precious and you've got a lot going on. So this is the informational session on our proposed four-day school week, and this is all presented by the Anamosa Community School District Calendar Committee. So I want to welcome you tonight. My name is Erin Jenkins. I'm the curriculum director here at Anamosa. A little bit about me. I'm a mom to 5 boys. I've got a high schooler, 2 middle schoolers, and 2 in elementary. And I've been an educator now for 19 years. 15 of those years was in the classroom. 4 years ago, I became assistant principal at Strawberry Hill, which if you have a 2nd through a 6th grader, they probably know me. They might not know what I did there. One little girl I was walking with asked me if I was the step principal. And I said, yep, I sure am. And then I was supervising in the lunchroom so much that a lot of kids would come up to me and ask me, are you the lunch lady? Yep, that's me too. I will do anything. So besides for that, if you don't have a 2nd through 6th grader, the other kids in the district might know me as Levi's mom, Cooper's mom, Wes's mom, Knox's mom, or Finn's mom. And those are all cool titles to have too. Because of all of that, I am an advocate for kids, and I'm an advocate for educators. And because I'm an advocate for kids, I'm also an advocate for their families. Like I said, this is brought to you by the Anamosa Calendar Committee. We have 25 members on our calendar committee. Those 25 members represent 9 different departments throughout the district. That's our nutrition staff, our transportation, teachers, paraeducators. All of us comprise the calendar committee, and it spans all 3 buildings. The agenda for tonight, we want to talk about our objective, our why, give you some historical perspective on what 4-day weeks have looked like, give you some new learning and what it could look like in Anamosa, and then finish with some discussion, question and answer, and let you guys talk and express what you're thinking. Our objective here is to give you as much information as possible so that you can make an informed decision on whether you would support this proposal or not. And I want to iterate our common goal. The reason we're doing this and the reason you're here is because we all want what's best for kids. So why would we propose a 4-day school week? Our main purpose is because we want to attract and retain staff. We are in the largest teacher shortage in history, and Anamosa feels that because we are not getting very many applicants for our positions. We want to be able to enhance student and staff well-being, and we also want to increase engagement and attendance. Continuing on with our why. So at the beginning of the year this year, we had multiple vacancies, especially at the high school. We could not find a high school English teacher, a high school Spanish teacher, or a high school business teacher, and that's a problem. We need quality educators in those positions to benefit our kids. We did get those filled 2nd semester, but we also need to make sure we have a competitive advantage with the larger schools around us who can pay their teachers more money. Here's another reason why. We've got 19 vacancies right now. This was polled a while ago, so there could be more or less, but 19 current vacancies. A special education teacher. There are not many special education teachers out there. We have to be able to attract those teachers to our district. A little bit on the historical perspective. 4-day weeks are nothing new. They have been happening since the 1970s. Besides for Iowa, there's 6 other states that have quite a few 4-day school weeks. Colorado is leading that pack with over 60% of their schools implementing a 4-day week. In Iowa, Waco has been the longest running school since 2013 with a 4-day school week. Within the last year or 2, there were 4 other schools that started their 4-day weeks, and just this year, it more than tripled to about 17 schools now who are implementing the 4-day school week. More conversation is happening at schools about 4-day school weeks. This is our timeline in Anamosa. We started kind of talking about it back in March of 2024, and that was when we made every Wednesday an early out to give more time for teachers to plan. We added 15 minutes to the school day, but in our heads, we were thinking, we're going to have to do something more. So in September, the calendar committee got back together, and they started to ask, what are we going to do? And so we started to research the 4-day school week. In October, we established our purpose. Why would we even propose something like this? Attract and retain teachers is the main reason. November, we started having those informal conversations with teachers to get feedback, to figure out what we needed to do. And then December, we developed a mock calendar just to see if it was feasible, to see if we could potentially have this type of calendar and not go all the way into July. And then in January, we proposed a model, kind of mocked up a model to see what staff feedback was like and see if there was even consensus. Because if staff wasn't interested, we weren't taking this anywhere else. We're trying to retain staff and attract them. And then now in February, we've got all of this information for you guys. We've got our research done and trying to give you as much information as possible on this and get your feedback, because we're going to take all of the staff feedback and all of your feedback and bring it to the board when we propose so the board can make an educated decision. Now, that will happen in March. We'll kind of give them more information in February at the board meeting, but in March will most likely be when the board has to make some decisions. We had to do our research. First question we asked was, how does this affect teacher attraction and retention? This survey done by Ed Week in 2023 gave the 66% of school employees are slightly or much more willing to go to a 4-day school week. 3 Iowa districts, I'm talking about 3 that have been doing it for more than just this semester, they have reported retaining between 85 and 88% of their teachers. They still have teachers who retire. They still have teachers that have to move out of the district and out of the state because life happens. Waco and Cardinal have reported an increase in applicants. They've said for a lot of their positions, instead of getting 1 to 2 applicants, they now get close to 10. And those applicants are quality applicants. Continuing on with teacher attraction retention, again, we had to get internal momentum before we could bring it to all of you. And our response rate from our educators, and when I say educators, I mean all of our staff who work in the school, because we know that our bus drivers, our custodians, everyone who works with kids is an educator in some capacity. So we talked to all of them. 108 of them were a complete yes on board with how they believe this is the right move. 27 said maybe, and 20 staff members said no because they had questions and concerns, mainly about contract, whether they were going to get paid the same or not, or just concerns about that, because we have hourly employees and then we have salary employees. So all of that kind of mixes in with what their feelings are. Bottom line, majority of staff are in support of this change. The next question we looked at was, what does this do to student and staff mental well-being? Rand surveyed students in 4-day weeks in 3 different states, and 89% of those students were satisfied with the change. Waco has seen a decrease in behavior office referrals. They've seen a decrease in kids that are on the DNF and eligibility list, and they've also seen a decrease in the number of behavior intervention plans that they have to put into place. Cardinal's at-risk population, they said, are more likely to attend 4 days instead of 5. 5 is just too many, I suppose, and the staff really love it. The next question was, how does this affect attendance? Because you all know we have a huge attendance campaign going on, and we're trying to get the importance of attendance for school out in the community. Iowa passed the law that attendance is really important, trying to get families to understand that. So all of that kind of comes together with it. Based on this chart, and I know there's a lot on here, we took the schools that are 4 days, we looked at what day they take off, Mondays or Fridays, and then what their percentages have been of chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is when a student misses 10% or more of a school year, so basically a whole month. For us, if we're on 180 days, they're missing 18 days or more of school. That's chronic absenteeism. So chronic absenteeism has had an average decrease with these schools by 4.43 percentage points. Waco and Cardinal say that they've seen an increase in staff attendance and at-risk students. Both are unsure if it's because of the 4-day week or if it's just because there's more awareness and them being vocal about it. The next question we really needed to find out is, what does this do to academic performance? We can't take that lightly. We need to make sure that our kids are still getting the right instruction and still being able to perform academically. So Waco and Cardinal have not seen any negative results in academic performance. There was a report that came out of Missouri that said there's little to no effect on performance when switching to a 4-day school week. And then just by looking at the 3 districts that have been there the longest, so Cardinal implemented in 22-23, Moulton Udell I think was 22-23 there, and Waco 2013. So I took those 3 since they've been the longest, and ELA increased by 6 percentage points and math increased by 10 percentage points just as an average, but limited data here. There's not years worth of data. That's just what we have to go by. How does this work in Iowa? Schools have to choose whether they want to go 1,080 hours or 180 days. Anamosa chooses the 1,080 hours, so that means our calendar committee has to figure out how to make a calendar so that students are going for that many hours. We currently go 176 days this year. That is 1,118 hours. That includes the extra hours. So like today, we had a delay. Those hours, then we don't have to make up at the end of the school year because we pad our hours within the calendar. What could this look like for Anamosa? We have gone back and forth. We considered Monday, we considered Friday, we looked at Wednesday and just kind of went all over, and we landed on Friday for a few reasons. Olin has Friday off, and we whole grade share with Olin. So that's just one piece of the puzzle. We share transportation. Kids sometimes open enroll here, so some of that is similar. Staff and student absences, traditionally, if we look at the statistics, traditionally those absences happen on Friday. So if we take Fridays out, maybe that will alleviate those absences. Many families also go on their mini vacations and they have an early afternoon departure time. So that was another reason to pick Friday. If you look at this screenshot right here, I went on the chamber website and looked at business hours for these 8 businesses. Now I know not everybody goes to these places in Anamosa. I just pulled the Anamosa ones because we were concerned, are businesses even open on the day we're saying we're going to be off, and can they even make appointments? Right now, out of these 8, 6 of them are open. I did talk to Shao Family Dentistry about possibly having student hours on Friday, and they said that they would have a conversation about it. So potentially that one could be open too. But just so you know, there are places open on Fridays for appointments and other things. What could this look like for students? Students would attend Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 3:45. They would go for 147 days, and the hours right now are 1,088 hours and some change. We would designate 5 of those Fridays as weather makeup days, so that way we don't have to tack them on at the end of the year. We would still have a week off for spring break, and we would still be out before June. 30 minutes would have to get added to the day to make sure we get all of our instructional hours in there, which equates to about 4 minutes per class period. We would have no more early outs. And then Fridays hopefully could be used for apprenticeships, internships, jobs, college, family time, or mental break. What does this look like for teachers? Right now our teachers are on a 189-day contract. In a 4-day week, they would be contact days would be 170 days. Our current contract hours are 8 hours. That equals about 1,488 hours in 189 days. And of course, we have all of the other things the job requires. In a 4-day week, our teachers would go up to 8.5-hour contracts. They would have a half hour longer than the students, and that would equal about 1,445 contact hours in 170 days. I say contact hours because teachers work well beyond contract, and they will continue to work nights and weekends, but this at least will give them some very good quality educational planning time. Potential benefits. For families, there'd be better attendance, students and teachers. We'd still have our breaks. You could potentially use Fridays to make doctor appointments. Now, you'll probably still have to make appointments before or after school, or even during the school day. That's life. That's what I'll still have to do that for my kids. But Friday is an option. There could be more family time on weekends, the day off for some of the other work that our high school students need to do, and then a more positive learning environment. One less day of behaviors. So getting rid of some of those behaviors does make the learning environment much better. For school and staff, we want to decrease absences, increase mental well-being, decrease teacher burnout, increase staff morale, increase teacher planning time, improve culture, retain staff, and attract more quality applicants. We know that there will be challenges. These are the 4 challenges that we're trying to mitigate the best we can. When it comes to food and nutrition, we want to make sure that the Anamosa lunch program bags, which serve about 60 to 65 students in our school, would have an extra day of food. Right now we send them home with 2 days worth of food. We would up that and give them 3 days worth of food. The high school will continue to provide the Raider Market Food Pantry. That's a no questions asked. Any family can sign up for that, and you go on Wednesday, you pick up your groceries, and you go on your way with your groceries. Even if you don't have transportation, friends can come pick up that food for you and take it home to you. We're going to continue to look for more solutions for food insecurity. We have 37% of our students who are receiving free or reduced priced lunch. So we will continue to look at solutions for that. As far as childcare goes, schools currently operating on a 4-day week reported this being a concern at first for parents, but has since not been an issue. We are very lucky in Anamosa to have Anamosa Raiders Kids Club, because when we were looking at the 17 school districts that are doing 4-day weeks, school weeks, only 3 of them have an in-house daycare. The rest of them have to go out to the community to find childcare somewhere else. So the fact that we have an in-house daycare helps with the availability of childcare for us. There is a program, the Child Care Assistance Program, for caregivers to help out financially. It's based on income. Our high school students would be off that day. There could be some who could babysit. There would be older siblings, family members, or family friends could also be an option. 98 kids right now are enrolled in ARC, but we can take up to 165. So, and I look down because we've got ARC here. So there is availability. It's probably the financial piece for somebody that would be the more of a concern. Activities is another one we looked at. We talked to several schools that are in the 4-day week. They said currently those operating on that schedule had no major effect. Schools were very positive about how it has all worked out. Prioritize academics earlier in the day. We want to do that so that when kids have to leave for games, they're not losing instructional hours or minutes. So we would put that earlier in the day. And then we could start home games at 4:30 instead of 4 o'clock, just so there's a little bit of buffer time between the end of school and when games start. With more schools talking about 4-day weeks, it's possible that that time will just bump back anyway. And as far as change goes, we need to continue researching so that we're informed when we make these decisions. We want to make this process as transparent as possible so that it alleviates some of the unknowns and gives you a little bit more comfort about what it could look like. And then change is hard for all of us, but if we stay focused on what's best for kids, we can't go wrong. What are our next steps? On the FAQ page that I sent out, there are the 17 districts that are in a 4-day week. So I added the QR code at the top here for that FAQ page. If you know anybody in those districts, family, friend, reach out to them and ask them more about what their experience is like and what's happening with that. The second thing on here are resources that our counselors connect our community members with. So this is a page on our website put out by our school counselors that helps families connect to the resources in our community that can help them. Number 3 on the QR sheet is, it goes to our website, and it's for applying for the jobs that you saw. If you need a job, would like a job, you can apply there. Or you can reach out to a friend who's looking for a job, and we would love to interview them and see if they could fill one of our vacancies. Number 4 is the community survey. That's where we want to hear your feedback and whether you support this or not. And number 5 is my email, contact information. You can use that QR code if you have other questions. You can email me. You can also call any of the buildings and get a hold of the principals, and they would be happy to answer your questions as well. All right, final thought. This guy on the screen is, well, he's getting turned into an ice cream sundae, is Mr. Grimm. Mr. Grimm is my teacher, mentor, and coach when I was growing up. He, along with many others, but he inspired me to be the best version of myself. He has since retired from education, but he couldn't stay away long enough because he came back to coach basketball, girls basketball again. Last month, Anamosa girls played Comanche here at home, and I went to watch the game. After the game, I got to visit with Mr. Grimm. And even as a 41-year-old adult, he was still pouring wisdom into me, life lessons and advice. Raise your hand if you had an educator in your past who inspired you, who believed in you, who did everything they could to help you make good choices. Raise your hand. It's a lot of you. No matter what happens with this calendar, the proposal, if it's approved or not, our educators will continue to pour their heart and soul into our kids to help them be wildly successful. if you are still lucky enough to have that educator around and you can connect with them, I encourage you to reach out to them and tell them how important they were to you, because that is worth its weight in gold for an educator. I love hearing from my former students. I love hearing what they're up to these days. You know, we talk about teacher pay, and yes, teachers want to be paid fairly, compensated fairly, but what would be more valuable to them is to know that parents and community support them. I want to thank you for your time tonight and for coming out. This has been a great discussion so far, so I am excited to hear what you guys have to say. All right, we'll get questions going. Does anybody have anything? Go back to our purpose. Yep, raise your hand, blurt out. We got microphones if you need a little more oomph.
Okay, so at the very beginning, or close to the beginning, you talked that there's been a real history of 4-day work school days back into the 70s. Where are those schools now? Because I think the latest one you said that had the longest string of years was what, 4 years? Is that Waco? Was it 4 years or was it longer than that?
Waco started in 2013.
Okay.
Yep.
What happened to the ones that were in the 70s, 80s, 90s? Did they go back to their original?
Like who was the
schedule?
first district?
No, I don't
whoever.
care who it was. I care about why aren't they still doing it? Because obviously they're not if they haven't strung those years together.
Not in Iowa. Yeah. Not in Iowa. Iowa, the longest running school is 2013. 1970s is just when, so schools in other states.
Oh, I understood you to say Iowa.
Nope. Waco is the longest running in Iowa. They started in 2013.
Okay. So this is strictly for teachers, the way I know you're saying students are going to benefit. I don't see that. I mean, you can throw those stats up, but have you considered talking to city officials and asking them what do they think is going to happen on a Friday in town when these kids are out of school? Is LCC going to become a babysitter center, or is the streets going to become crowded with behavioral problem children that you're saying that they have problems in 5 days, but they seem to settle down in 4 days? What are those same kids going to do in that 5th day out on the streets?
I hope the children aren't out on the streets.
They're on the street. I mean, unless they're in daycare, and that's only to a certain age. You know that this is school district wide, so we're talking some of the older kids, middle school on up. Do you have any notion of looking into what might happen out beyond the school and the programs that you're supposedly going to provide for these kids on that Friday?
The programs we will provide?
Yeah, well, you're saying you have, I forget the name of the kids club thing and the school lunches and all that, but beyond that, it's a day off for those kids. It's not a weekend. They're going to be running around town. Not all of them, but a good percentage of them. Have you thought that through? Have you discussed that with city officials? And
No,
what do they think about it?
We haven't discussed it with city officials.
You understand where I'm coming from on that?
Sort of, I think so. And I don't have a crystal ball to know what kids will do, or, you know, if I'll have 3 older ones at home on that day and I'll be at work, and it's something that I have to set their expectations, and I have to check in with them, and I have to make sure that they're being responsible and stuff like that. So like, it's still on me as a parent to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And as a parent of the young kids, your responsibility is to come up with some more money for daycare, correct?
It just depends. Some of it will be alleviated because Wednesday right now is an early out, so parents have to find childcare on Wednesday afternoons because we only go half a day. So now instead of that, it will be in a full day, so they have to find the other half of a day for childcare. So some of it negates itself, but some of it, there could be an added cost, but we have financial possibilities for childcare.
But you do realize there is still a shortage of daycare providers in this town.
Yep,
So
and
you're going to throw a rush into that, to those people and those providers, which I don't see them being able to handle.
we are lucky to have an in-house childcare program that can take on more kids.
So for childcare, yes, we can accept 165 kids, but they don't come every single day. So the way the program would work is that we can potentially have more kids than 165 because it all varies. We can only have 165 on one day, but they don't all come on that same day. Does that make sense? So there's more openings.
So you're going to be able to handle this amount more?
The districts,
No, if you go on vacation or something, or if it's not necessarily that 165 kids are going to come on a Friday. A what?
98 enrolled, yep. So,
Correct. Correct.
what do parents do on this in the summer? So we could potentially have high school babysitters. There could be siblings, there could be family members, there could be family friends. Like there are several options. We will send out a survey, and in that survey is a child care question, just to see where people are considering their child care will be, and that will help us kind of plan ahead for where child care will be.
But when you start opening it up to the public and you look at the results of the survey that's out there right now, it's not positive. The community isn't in support of it, and it's somewhat frustrating that it really feels like this is something that's going to move forward, and we're just finding out about it in February. And there was a slide that you said you were trying to have transparency. This feels like the complete opposite of transparent, right? Because we're not finding out about any of this stuff until it sounds like the train's pulling out of the station, get on board or get out of town. That's how it feels.
It's still a proposal, and the board has not approved it. They still have to approve it, and they will take all of your feedback, everything that you guys say, everything staff says, and they will have to make the decision. So yes, staff has consensus. Community will see where that ends or lands, but then the board has to take all of that information and they then have to make the decision. They have not made a decision yet, and I don't know where they stand,
And is that going to be in March?
most likely.
Has St. Pat's School Board been brought in on this discussion?
I talked to Diane, and she is going to either line something, she's going to talk to her board and see if they want to talk with me or talk with the district, and so I did talk to her about that.
You're talking to three of them right now. President,
Oh, great.
School board.
Oh, okay,
That's half
good.
the school board right there.
So has
And
she,
we haven't heard.
We have
no,
heard,
Okay.
not
we've heard
from-
nothing.
she's
understand
going
she
to
was
ask
here
you,
the
I'm
other day.
guessing. Okay.
That's the first she heard about it the other day also.
I think
Okay.
she's known about it, but she,
Well, the whole town's heard rumors about it.
yeah.
I've been reaching out to the superintendent for months, asking to be a part of this process, just be asked to be included in the discussion. And she found out on social media on last Friday when it came out about these informational meetings.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
was not transparent with her whatsoever. She has been reaching out for months,
Mm.
so. And she was actually told by the superintendent that we would be included in on the discussion, so.
Okay.
Correct.
Sixth.
We have a
Or six?
preschool program, but then it's, yeah, K through 6. I believe our current enrollment's 73, or 70-something. Yep. Okay. Okay, well, a month too, so she has not been told.
So was it
She
school-
found out on social media, so. No, I know, I understand, I appreciate that,
so
thank
as
you.
a school board member, you've never heard of this idea? For the first time? Really? Okay.
So I'll address this. I'm the superintendent.
Okay.
Okay? We have a calendar committee that meets every year. Okay? I'm assuming St. Pat's has the same thing. Okay?
Our school
It is
board.
not the same district. Okay? I'm listening to our calendar committee, who meets every year. St. Pat's has never been a part of that because it's a different school. Right? They're not the same school district. You have your own board. We have our own board. Okay? So we've never had St. Pat's or any other district that we share with or have open enrollment as part of our calendar committee decisions. Okay? So we have to decide how our staff feels about where they want to go first. Right? So we're responding to all of this effort that's went in over the last 2 or 3 months. Okay? We had a calendar committee last spring. We settled in on the calendar that we have now with the intention of starting up right away in the fall, investing in a 4-day week because it's being discussed in other places, and our staff wanted to know what would it look like if it were here. Okay? So that's where we're at now. We have worked the internal processes that we have with the group of people. There are almost 30 people on that committee. Okay? Diane has reached out. And I've been consistent in my answer, which is when we get to the point where we know what we're doing, then we can talk. But I don't know why I would have St. Pat's on the Anamosa calendar committee. It's never happened before.
We never asked to be on the calendar committee.
Don't put it out like that, please.
Well, but you're saying that we haven't been
No,
inclusive.
No, we said,
Misrepresented.
Diane reached out for months asking that we be a part of the discussion about a 4-day school week.
Correct.
Not being on the calendar committee. She did not ask to be
And
on
I
the calendar
told her,
committee.
listen, so I've been consistent that our calendar committee has not come to a place where we're ready to go outside of the calendar committee. Okay? Then we set the stage. We've looked at other schools that have done the same thing. Okay? Then you go and you, instead of having just a survey, do your community forums. get all that feedback, have people do a survey, but at least give people a chance to have a conversation, which is what we're doing right now. Okay, no decisions have been made. Okay,
In March, is that coming?
we have to put a calendar up in March. Okay,
And it has to be approved or denied.
right.
Okay.
So
Well, we have.
So the
so-
decision's being made in March.
decision will be made.
Correct.
We'll have a calendar, whether it's, whether the board decides to look and move forward with a 4-day week, or whether they say we want to go and do what we're doing right now.
So the decision will be made in March.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so we're in February.
Yep.
That's why Diane wanted to be a part of the discussions before now,
Mhm.
is what I'm saying. And you're saying that that's kind of out there and that it really shouldn't have been a consideration.
We talked with our staff who want us
I
to bring
understand that. You
bring
said
this
that.
to our board, which we're doing. Our board is a good board. They will look at
I
all
know
the
your
stuff.
board, sir. So, my problem with this whole, not just this, but with the non-communication, yeah, we're not a part of your school district, but we do, we're like,
Right.
we're like a subcontractor is what
Right.
we are.
Mhm.
So, I would feel that maybe you have the common courtesy to, especially since she has reached out on several occasions, at least keep her abreast of what's going on. It doesn't sound like that's happened till right now when the rest of us citizens are being let in
Mhm.
on this deal. You don't see a problem with that?
I'm trying to get consensus with my own district as where to move forward. Okay? We are now at that point in our own district. Now we're going outside of the district. Okay? It doesn't do me any good there would be no need for us to be here if 75% of my staff said we don't want this. Right? There would be no reason for any of us to be here. At the point where we reached consensus with our staff that they wanted us to bring this forward, they're well aware that it may or may not go.
With
But they
what you
want it to
just-
be
With
forward.
what you just said then, can I ask you, if you did do a legitimate survey with all the school district taxpayers, not parents or anything like that, the taxpayers, and they showed an overwhelming non-support of this,
Yep.
would you have moved forward?
They have that chance right now
How?
because the survey
The only way
link,
they're going to know it is on a website or whatever. I hate to tell you, but your average person, even my age and older, is not understanding or have been told that this is going on.
okay, so they have a chance to take the survey. We'll try to get as much information out that the survey's out there. The survey's not closing, it's just open this week. All of that information goes to our board. And if the overwhelming majority of the community is not in favor, our board has to consider that and decide what goes on. Our staff will accept the results. They just felt after the work that they put in that they wanted to move it to the next level, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty quick process.
And you know our board, right? So
Sure,
you can
sure.
certainly talk with each one of our board members and express your concerns. I am sure they will listen to you. But that's their role in this, right, is to take all the information and decide what's best for the district moving forward. No decisions have been made. They're getting information. I've kept them abreast of what the calendar committee's been doing, but we didn't even have a model to show till we worked through. Now we're at the next stage. You could say and make a case. Maybe it is being rushed.
It's very accelerated. 'Cause
Maybe it is.
Trust me, I've been on a lot of these boards and commissions in my life, and this is extremely fast-paced.
Right? And our board will take all that into account and make sure they make the right decision. For me as superintendent, it's important that I honor the work that my staff did and what they wanted me to present based on that work, which is what we're doing.
Okay.
Right? This is not, I have no idea what will happen. I have no idea what we'll get for community feedback. We'll find out. I hope everybody takes it. But our board is a good board. They will take all of that information. They will make the best possible decision, okay? And they'll move forward. But I have to move our calendar committee work out into this domain, right, to get that process started. If it's rushed, or they believe it's rushed, they will make the right decision. But I have to move that information out now of our committee and get it out to everybody that I can get it out to. Okay? And they'll have to decide. Are they going to not do it? Or are they going to say, well, let's keep gathering information and look at it again next year? I have no idea. I just know that the work that was done looking at how it might look in Anamosa is good work. It may not be what you want or what they want, but if you were going to ask what would a 4-day week look like in Anamosa, this is good work, right? This is really, if you're going to do it, it's going to have to look something like this based on all the feedback that we've gotten from our staff, okay? So I just wanted to put that out there. We're trying to get it out to as many people as we can, but I couldn't put it out before we know what it might look like, right? There is a model now that works, right, that has the stuff that we've worked through the day. What would it look like for PD? We have all those stuff. There's enough information now to start considering what it is, okay? That's where we're at. So I'm going to get it back here and get out of the way. And we do need to use the mic because it might be at, 70 people online listening because it's being live streamed tonight and recorded, and the recording is being available as well.
All right, I just had a quick question. So technically, since St. Pat's is private, they could do a 5-day school week, or if a parent wanted to send their kids to a 5-day school week, St. Pat's would be an option.
Yep.
Correct.
St. Pat's can choose whatever
Yes.
schedule they would like.
So there
Yep.
still could be a 5-day option for families if they needed it,
True.
and then Anamosa could still, the public school could do 4 days.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I do teach at a district that has multiple dismissal times, anywhere from 2:30 to 3:30, and busing really hasn't been a problem. So I mean, with staggered dismissal times, it's not really a issue either. I mean, you would take a route and then go back and get the next route, and so I don't think that would be an issue either, but I don't know.
My name is Dennis Holland. I'm on the school board as well. One question I have, and you touched on a little bit, is the students that might be on an IEP or have a little bit more learning challenges usually do learn best in the morning. This would remove one of those mornings. Have any other school districts that have moved to the 4-day week, talked about how they address that? Because you're basically, removing 20% of their optimal learning time per week.
Yeah, good question. So I reached out to the superintendents, Waco, Highland, and Cardinal, in a very specific question. I asked them, what is happening with students who are receiving services with IEPs? And they said that they continue to exit students off of IEPs. They said the goals that are set for those students are weekly goals. So that means that those minutes that they receive in 5 days, they need to receive in those 4 days. So they're still receiving all of the minutes that are in the IEPs, and the promising thing is they're still exiting students from those IEPs.
I actually have one of those students as a special needs student, and so I am concerned about the longer day, especially for him, but also for all special needs students. I think that it's hard enough to get them to stay as long as they are engaged in the day, so I do think that'll be harder. But the one thing that I want to ask about is, you do say that there isn't much data out there, and I'm a data and research gal, and I did find an article that does say that They would not recommend schools adapt a 4-day schedule if their main aim is saving money, boosting student attendance, or recruiting and retaining teachers. Research findings do not provide much support for the argument that 4-day school weeks are delivering the intended benefit. As an HR professional in my previous life, I'm curious to know what the other recruiting methods that have been done, because I see this as like another sign-on bonus for someone where it comes, it goes, it's a phase, and then you end up in the same boat you are now where you're needing to find teachers. So I was just wondering what other recruitment strategies have been done in the past.
One way we got our 3 new teachers the second semester was word of mouth. We had a student teacher who went back to his cohort in college and said, hey, Anamosa has 3 positions. Is anyone interested? And we got 3 teachers that graduated in December from that cohort. And they're doing really well, but it's been reaching out to colleges and asking, who are your graduates? We need teachers. Can any of them apply, or any of them interested? That's one recruit, just getting the word out through social media. Teachers know that there is a specific place that they can go to find teaching jobs. And so those are all different ways that we try to recruit and hire and things like that.
Where the parents come in and, you know, you have a community that supports those teachers, and that you have parents' involvement. You said it earlier that, you know, these are things that the teachers thrive on. It's not going to be a schedule, and that's not going to be the money. It's going to be the environment, and that's why they stay.
One of those handouts that you got in your hand is our 5-year strategic plan. And if you look at the very top rock on that, it's culture. We are doing things for school improvement as far as culture and climate, and that is still a priority of ours and will always be a priority.
Okay, Erin, I have a question. On one of the slides, what it could look like for teachers on Fridays, you did put that every other Friday would be a full day of planning, collaboration, and professional learning, so 8.5 hours. What is that then every other Friday? That's about 21 of the 42 Fridays would be dedicated to professional development. If you total every Friday, that comes to about 263 hours. What's required by the state? Is funding for our school dependent on a number of hours of professional learning that teachers do?
Professional development is a very specific niche of hours. So what's required is 36 hours of professional development, and that includes your collaboration. It includes like instructional strategies, type learning, having people come in and teach us different strategies and things like that. So like professional development is different. We want a big chunk of that time spent for just individual teacher planning for quality lessons, and that is not included in the state's definition of professional development, if that makes sense.
It does. So going back to that, every other Friday they would be in the building working on Fridays, but what would they do then for the other 21 Fridays?
They would be off because we are extending their contract. Their contract will be longer now, and so their hours are still comparable. They still have just about the same number of hours. It just is, the schedule is shifted in a different way. So they still have the same amount of time, basically. It's just, it just looks different, and the hours are shifted into different days instead.
Okay. Trying to comprehend that as a parent who, again, works 5 days a week, where in a corporate America, COVID is over, people are being called back into an office 5 days a week, or if they are remote employees, know that they are being put on PIPs, performance improvement plans, or corrective action if they are found to be working at home with children in the house. FYI, it's happening. Corporations in Cedar Rapids that are nationwide and things like that, just to take into consideration.
Thank you.
Erin, my question might have a couple of components. So we talk about this will increase family time. In my family, where both parents work full-time, that's not going to be the case. Because I'm assuming, how are we going to do activities in sports? Are those going to go longer on the 4 days where my children will be at practices or at student council or whatever later into the evening? How will that work?
Possibly 30 minutes, because we're extending the day by 30 minutes. Yeah, that is possible.
Right,
And-
so,
yeah.
so do we know the percentage of people in Anamosa that are stay-at-home parents? What percentage of our community stays at home?
I don't know.
Okay, that was never looked into.
I don't have that number,
Okay.
but if you guys write that down, I can research that and figure that out, and I can send that out.
Right, because I think for a lot of us, we work. And now I'm going to see my kids less in the evening. I have kids that are very involved. So they're going to be gone later. I'm going to have less time with them. They're going to be more exhausted, so that quality time will be even less special, is if that's the word I can use, because they're going to be exhausted. So how is that helping a family, environment?
So that is situational. The family time is a benefit for some. I will still be working. My husband will still be working. Our kids are still very active. We'll be in the same boat there. So family time for us might look different. It's, like I said, it's situational. That's just one benefit some families are going to experience. Not every single family is going to experience the benefits that are on that list. It's just a possibility.
Sure. And then going into sports, will there be no practices on Fridays? How will that work?
That one still needs to be determined. Some districts, especially for junior high, have instituted a no practice for junior high students. Others said, well, we'll keep it as is and see how that turns out. Some districts chose to transport their kids on that day, so there are different models out there that we could try and figure out what would work best for our community and the transportation needs and what our kids need.
Okay. So if there are, unfortunately, our conference is all over the place in Iowa. And another one of my concerns is I've had my daughter leave school at 12:30 in the afternoon to make it to a sporting event. Now, she's going to be missing even more school because she'll be missing an extra 45 minutes into the day. So because we travel so far in our conference, and I know that's not something we can change, now our sports kids, and it's not about sports, I'm just talking about a part of it that takes our kids away from education. They will be missing more school.
That's the concern that keeps coming up, and when we reach out to those districts that have done this, they said that it's a non-issue for them. And so just based on that feedback and that information, that's what we're leaning on, the people who are in it, doing it, and seeing it.
Erin, can I piggyback on that for a second?
Yes.
I also was wondering about those questions. And for Fridays, for practices, any sort of practices, are there guidelines or parameters for the amount of time kids can be in practices during non-school hours? So what I'm thinking or concerned about is, are these kids going to be stuck in practices for several hours on Friday? And then, of course, you don't want anybody to be penalized for not being there for the, is there any research on that? Or what are the parameters on that?
I would think our coaches wouldn't want to spend even more time. I don't know. I'm kind of looking at Mr. Compton right now. So the districts that we've talked to, a lot of them said between this time and this time, there are no practices. We won't have that happen because, well, teachers will have professional development every other Friday. So basically 2 Fridays a month, we have to make sure that that time is still protected for kids' mental well-being.
Well, or middle school,
Mm-hmm.
if there's any activities
Yeah.
on those Fridays. But what are we going to do for transportation for kids that don't have a vehicle or a ride from someone?
Yeah. Some of the districts have gone ahead and instituted transportation, and so we just have to look into that even more, and if that is a need, we can get that figured out.
So I just had a quick question on the recruiting and retention. I was glad to hear that you brought up the 3 new staff members that you have here that you picked up halfway through the year. What other items do you have that you've put in place for recruiting and retention? And how are you holding your analysis of that constant so that you can see which variables are making the difference?
One of the biggest problems in education with teachers is the fact that they leave within the first few years of teaching. They leave the profession. We have fewer teachers going into the programs in college and graduating with a teaching degree, and when they start teaching, many of them leave within the first 5 years, leave the profession. So what we do in Anamosa is we have a pretty robust new teacher network program where we have professional partners, veteran teachers in the district that are paired up with new teachers, and they work with them each month, several times. They collaborate with them. We have instructional coaches that go in, model, help them with behavior, classroom management if they need that. And then we also have monthly meetings where we all get together and we train them up on many of the things Anamosa does, but just good instructional practices. And so that is their support system, and we continue to get feedback from them on how they're doing, and we adjust and make sure that they hopefully stay in the teaching profession and don't leave. Retention for others, we have been doing stay interviews to find out why people want to stay in Anamosa so that we can continue to replicate those great things that we do provide our teachers. And then as far as attracting people to Anamosa, you know, there isn't a whole lot different, unless Darren, you can think of something. The attraction is usually, it's hard because people stay because they feel connected, because there are things here in Anamosa that they love. They love about Anamosa. It could be the people, it could be certain groups that they just feel a sense of belonging. So we want to try and create that sense of belonging for people who are coming to Anamosa to work so that they don't leave. They want to stay here. Hook them in.
So it's still a lot of the same that it's been for years, which is about this time of the year, we start reaching out to all the education departments. Who do you have graduating? We did it in the fall. Who do you have graduating in December? In what areas, right? And then we try to reach out to them that way. You go to job fairs, right? And certain, you and I, certain, teacher colleges will put on job fairs. You go up there. A lot of it, though, is trying to make contact with the leads in those departments, because it's that relationship that points people back. So the 3 that we were able to pick up in December was based on the experience one of our student teachers had, right? What I say wouldn't matter as much as what he said to them about his experience student teaching here. Okay, so those are positives. The problem is there are fewer and fewer kids, right, or teachers to reach out to. From a experienced teacher standpoint, if you are relocating, if you are, a lot of that to come down, and most would be, I was here, but now it's closer for me to go to work there, or my family moved. We've picked up several out-of-state teachers who moved back to Iowa in the area, and therefore this was a good option for them. But just the numbers, when we advertised starting in the middle of the summer for those 3 positions, we had 0 applicants, right? We still had 0 applicants in December. We just had a student teacher who went back and talked with some other student teachers, and their advisor had been here and backed him up, right? And that was the piece. And then we offered them a sign-on bonus, because I still remember, okay, you're going to leave, in this case, they were you and I, right? You're going to leave you and I. You're going to have to find an apartment. You're going to have to pay deposits. You're going to have to do all those things that it's really hard for new teachers or people who are just getting started in their career. So what we gave them was enough to, hey, this will help you pay your deposits and stuff. And then we said, we'll give you the second half if you come back next fall, right? But it really, the concerning part is just the number of kids or people coming out of the programs. And we're all, when I say all, I mean all districts, right, are like all after that same group of a very small group. You probably remember, it was not an elementary teaching job. It was not uncommon to have 100 applicants. Now you might get 2, right? And the 2 are also applying at all the schools around us, right? And so we're all competing for a smaller and smaller group of people. That's what's making it challenging, because the numbers just aren't there.
I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm going to try to get it to the ones that actually make sense. So you said there were 20, like when you went to survey the people in the district, teachers, staff, etc. There were 20 people that were no's and 27 that were maybes. Did you get a sense that like the 20 people that were no are like, and now we're out? Because that's a whole lot more people to try to, get for next year if this were to go through.
No,
Okay.
their main concern was contract.
Okay.
They were afraid they would lose insurance, they would lose pay from
Sure.
reduced hours, but we can't do that. We're not looking to lose them, and
Right.
so we're going to have to make sure that their contracts are right.
Okay. Also, this goes to a totally different topic, back to childcare. The Friday, even if the kids club can absorb the most of that, that's an extra day, right, for parents that would have to pay, right? It's not like, since we did this, since we're changing the schedule, this is just like helpful.
It probably isn't an entire day, but it is more because of the early outs. We will get away from those, and so instead of 4.5 days, we'll be going 4 days.
Right, no, I get it. I just wanted to make sure it's that, like, it's still an extra expense. Yeah, it's an extra expense for families.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. I think that's all.
All right, I had a daycare kind of question too. So let's say like a 5th through 8th grader. Does Kids Club do, what is it called, 6th grade? 13.
4
Okay.
to 12, and they age out at 13.
Has there been any talk like keeping almost like a kids club type thing at the middle schools for those 5th through 8th, and then keeping, you know, ARC at?
So prior, we did have what was called in between over at the middle school, and it was not successful. It came where they get bussed over. So the middle schoolers get bussed over to us. So we still have middle schoolers. It's all just kids club.
And if like there were, let's say, these middle schoolers, could there be any way? I'm just thinking I have a 5-year-old. I really don't want him hanging out with like a 13-year-old all day on a Friday. Just because, I mean, I just know how kids are. So could there be a way to like, I guess, separate them almost like throughout the day? So kind of little kids are over here, big kids doing their thing in the gym.
We
I
sure
don't know.
can.
Okay, that's just something with just the age difference, that's just a worry for me.
Yes.
I understand. Most of our older kids, though, are very wonderful with our younger kids, and they help them. But I completely understand that concern.
I have a 5-year-old in kids club, and the older kids are very good with him too. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I just want to, again, piggyback on that. If we are going to be adding 67 or so kids, how many more employees do we need to hire for Kids Club to help with that?
So it's based off a ratio for Kids Club. So right now we run a 1 to 15 ratio. Sometimes we'll do it at a 1 to 12 ratio, just because we do have some younger ones, but according to HHS, ours is a 1 to 15 ratio. The older they are, like the 8 to 10-year-olds, it's a 1 to 20 ratio. So as they get older, it's different, but we keep it at a 1 to 15 or 1 to 12. Correct, but on a nightly basis, I have 4 to 5 employees down there, and I'm always an extra. So.
For Kids Club, are you guys also having issues with staffing as far as being able to keep up with staff? Are they staying? Are you getting people that are applying?
So one of my employees right now was actually a kids clubber, and she is now an employee. So we do have them coming back to us. We are full staffed right now, so we're doing well. But there are times where it does fluctuate. So.
And are most of the kids currently just from elementary school that you guys have right now? Or do you get?
What do you mean?
I mean, like right now, you currently have 98 kids. So is that 98 elementary students? Because if this is gonna be district-wide, you're gonna be getting middle and, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna be getting more.
Well, we have middle schoolers. We
Oh,
have from
currently in your-
age 4 to 12-year-olds.
Okay.
So that is what we run at right now. So.
Okay. Another question is, as far as like the athletic part, I know you said 30 minutes, but how many of our teachers are currently coaches, and are they having to be contracted for later than school? You know what I mean? When school gets out, so it'll be later than 30 minutes. If they're coaching, they would have to, I mean, so really realistically, what would that be?
Yeah, so teachers are on a contract for they get a teaching contract, and then when they coach something, any activity that they have, they would receive a stipend. So the stipend covers whatever coaching duties they have, and it's not included in their teaching contract.
No, but I mean, so are the teachers having to stay, they're only staying until 3:45, or is their contract later? So if they're coaching, then practice won't start until after they're done with their teaching.
Yep. The teacher's contract will be 8.5 hours, And so that means that it will probably be a 7:45 to 4:15, that 8.5? So 8.5 hours. So they have to go 30 minutes beyond the students just to make sure that all students are out of the building before they can go.
And then one other question as far as sports goes, do we know about how many athletic events are requiring early, really, like our kids are leaving on from Fridays, Mondays, like you talked about Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Do we know statistic-wise when our kids are leaving typically on what day to kind of have that even be?
That's a great question. You can write that down and we can pull some of that, or unless you know it, great. Go for it.
During sports seasons now at the middle school. For example, right now we're in girls wrestling for middle school and boys basketball. They typically would have 2 games a week. One of the 2 is usually home, the other one's usually away. So I kind of count on losing our student athletes at least once a week towards the end of the day. I would say that ranges in time. Right now we're dismissed at 3:25. I mean, I know I heard somebody earlier say something about like leaving at 12:30 for an event. We don't go as far as high school kids go, so it's not that severe, but it is a concern. I mean, just something to pay attention to.
So the day varies. It's not one specific day that you notice that they're leaving for.
No,
like a
it all
Friday, for
depends.
instance.
It all depends on the athletic schedule and if you're at home or if you're away.
I think my other thing, I know that we've had a few people that have addressed or have kind of brought forward the part as far as like it kind of feels like a sleight of hands as far as with the shortness, you know, timeline. Anybody that has a board knows that it takes a long time to kind of get that information out to our boards as well, and then to be able to make a sound decision. And I feel like with St. Pat's, because they're subcontracted with us, those are also, I mean, they're beings, they're people that we're talking about within our own community. You know, we talk about community being a big thing as far as like teacher retention and everything too. But I feel like, you know, we're kind of gypping part of our community that we work closely with, you know, and I know obviously with the new, you know, vouchers and things, that was also a big portion. And so I feel, you know, I really do apologize on behalf of our community that you guys are kind of shorted as far as trying to hurry up and make decisions now being based on what we have kind of been working on apparently for a year now, you know, like it does. I do feel that you guys are kind of getting gypped as far as that goes, but also as parents, you know, to be able to make a decision and even talk through things with our community and find out other things. I feel like that's my biggest thing because with our shortage of childcare, those were all numbers I felt like that we kind of have to factor in as well, is St. Pat's, because they are part of our community and because they are subcontracted. 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to have to go that direction as well. So have we taken into consideration all of their numbers and figures, or have we just kind of been working on our portion? Because the elementary school alone, I mean, with 45% disadvantaged students, that is a huge number to be throwing out there, and then to include other communities as well, for parents and people to have to worry about childcare and food. I know our church is actually the one who hosts Ally, who does the backpacks, and I spoke with them, and currently we have 61 students who are receiving backpacks, but that program is a non-government program. That program is goes off of grants and funding from the community. So that's going to be money that the parents or people are going to have to contribute in order to include that extra food coverage. Already they say they cover that amount of food for like weekends or, you know, long holidays. So to actually throw that number in there, have we reached out to those programs to see if that's something that's going to be doable? Because I know the Raider one as well is also grant funded, right, from the community
Yes.
foundation?
Yep.
So just knowing that that's not guaranteed money, you know, I work for 2 different nonprofits and we're getting cut left and right on both sides, and money is tight all over. So to say that we have these things in place, and I know it's going to be a work in progress, like I get that, but to say that we have these things in place but not knowing if that's even going to be viable and if it's going to be something that is going to be doable in our community, you know, if those 2 don't receive grant money, what are we going to do? You know, how many families? Because I know currently, like HACAP on Thursdays each month, we have 150 people that come and utilize that. That's during the school day, though, and so for it's a majority of older families. It's our older people. It's not even families. So, you know, that is like my #1 concern is just our kids and our community, and the need that's going to take. I saw on there Rise Counseling's closed on Fridays. You know, that's another big one. I know Rise Counseling, we're working, our school district has been great about working with that too. Like, as far as the counseling goes, do they come in and you give services on Fridays currently? Would that be something that would have to be worked into one of those other 4 days?
Yeah, we do have a counselor that comes in from RISE, so they do work with our students, and they have, the caseload would then be in those 4 days. They would manage that. As far as the food insecurity, of course, that is one of the challenges our community faces. And so we have things in place, but like you said, it's grant funded, so we rely on the money from those grants to help that keep going. If that's gone, we still have to find the solutions. We still have to make sure that we're taking care of our community, and it's not just the schools' problem to take care of that, it's our entire community that has to figure out the solutions to help the food insecurity.
Yeah, and I totally get that. And that's where I say, I feel like we are like letting our community down with not, you know, reaching out to St. Pat's, because I get it takes a community, you know, like, I mean, yeah, it really does. So we as a district, or we as a school, or we as a community of Anamosa in general, you know, need to be better about being community. You know what I mean? Where I feel like this part of it, like we're just so short, like with the amount of time and information. Like, this is a big decision, you know, and I get that you guys have been doing research and everything, but that's where I feel like we as a community feel gypped, or, you know, are letting down part of our other community because we haven't given them the same respect, you know what I mean, as far as that portion of it goes, allowing them to be able to make sound decisions and choices for their population and their community, which is within our community. And in order for us to all work together, like, we need that community. We don't want a division, you know, like, and so I really struggle with that. That's, I think, been my hardest part of it is, one, the disadvantaged students that we have. I mean, we have the penitentiary, so that kind of, you know, adds a whole different element into that as well, so.
Thank you.
I'm back. I keep coming back to our elementary kids, and increased time in a child's day, or, you know, increased time in a day for a child doesn't always mean effectiveness. You have 5 and 6-year-olds with an attention span of 12 to 18 minutes, roughly. Getting them on a bus about some kids, I'm not sure where, 6:45 in the morning, given an earlier start time. I've just calculated our time getting off the bus then would be about 4:30 p.m. and we live in city limits. We're kind of asking these kids to take on a fully structured day that's equivalent of an adult. How comfortable are you with that for our Strawberry Hills students being kind of, you know, 7 a.m. on a bus, getting home at 4:30, the mental kind of workload of that day for them? Are there plans in place to kind of change the dynamic of what they learn in a day? Extra recesses, making sure they can also take kind of that mental break, because they're 5 and 6 years old.
Yep. I have a 5-year-old. Yep. I know what you're talking about. I have little ones too. So here's how I think through that. Our teachers are trained to get those kids mental breaks throughout instruction, throughout day. It's not like when we went to school, we aren't sitting in desks all day. These kids are up and moving. They're going to PE, they're going to recesses, but then our teachers, we have smart curriculum in the elementary where they're going through the hallway, they're hopscotching, jumping, push-ups against the walls, like they're doing the psychomotor type stuff. We incorporate a lot of that movement in their days, and we give them lots of breaks because, like you said, that attention span is very small for our littles. And so when I reached out to districts and I asked them specifically, how are your elementary students doing with this? Because I've got little kids, what does that look like? And consistently they said, they're tired the first few weeks, they're really tired, but then everyone gets used to it and it just starts flowing. You get into a rhythm, you get into a routine. I don't like this, but my 2 kids, they go early to kids club. They're in school all day. They go to kids club after school, and I don't pick them up until 5:30. That's when I usually get done. That's when I can usually go grab them from daycare. They're tired, but they're in that routine. And so I'm not saying that is the best thing ever. I'm just saying some families, that's how they have to function. That's because parents are working and because there's just a lot going on. But we do try to incorporate movement for our elementary kids and middle school and high school.
Okay, I think it's my last question then. Is the calendar committee kind of preparing 2 calendars? For example, a 4-day and a 5-day calendar for next year. Would they ever consider, since these meetings I feel are just a little late in the school year to implement in 2025, 2026, would they ever consider 26, 27 to give parents enough time, and also given open enrollment dates are March 1st?
Our board will have to make that decision, but as far as a 5-day calendar goes, it would look very similar to this year's calendar. So there isn't much difference, there isn't much change. So if we did need a 5-day, we could have one right away. That one does not take the amount of planning and research that we had to do ahead of time to even figure out if a 4-day was feasible or not. So the 5-day would be easy to put together and also have. Yeah.
Looks like he's not moving. Sorry. And because of that, I have completely forgotten, but hold on just a second. Circling back. One of the slides talks about academic benefit and or not benefit, detriment. And so there's some on there that are like positive for sure, and those are obviously highlighted, and there are some on there that have gone down. I'm looking at it as though it were there, sorry. So I guess because there's not a ton of data, especially that's representative from Iowa, pause.
Go ahead.
There, well, back. There you
Found
go.
it.
No, that one.
Academic performance?
Yeah. So
you're looking at the
like Moravia and I don't know, the ones with minuses.
Yeah, Moravia.
I'm looking at the ones with minuses.
Moravia went down 3 percentage points in ELA from the beginning. So you can look at ELA 71, 66, 68. So in the last 3 years, and the data is limited. There's just not much there.
Right, and that's kind of where I'm going with that. Like,
yeah.
How do we, obviously, if this is a tool to attract teachers, which I totally understand, and also pay them more, but that's just another story. That's not something you can do. Like, how do we know that it's not going to be worse, right? Like, how do we know that kids maybe shouldn't be in school instead, like a shorter day for more of them? I guess it doesn't really have a good answer, right? Because there just isn't, it's not there, the data. So I don't.
At least not in Iowa.
Okay.
Other places have been doing it for 10 to 15 years. Rural schools see a lot better results in academic performance. Urban schools see less of that.
Okay.
So it has been a good thing for rural schools.
Interesting. Okay, now I need to fall down the rabbit hole of why, but that is also not your problem.
Yes, Mr. Compton.
I actually have a question.
Yeah.
60% of Colorado school districts have gone to this.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have a whole lot of data. How close have we looked at that?
The research that I read from some of those things, again, points at rural schools. It all depends on how you implement it, but rural schools seem to fare better than your urban schools. So here's another statistic I read was out of all of the schools that went to 4-day, less than 10% of them felt like it was not good, not conducive to learning, and they went back to a 5-day, but that was less than 10%. The rest of them all still felt like the 4-day was the right choice.
I understand we also have a shortage of support staff, non-contract staff, bus drivers, paras, etc. How do you expect this will impact them?
With the shortage, hopefully we can attract more and bring them in.
So will they be working less hours?
Potentially, but that means we have to get their contracts right so that they aren't making less. They would work less hours, but they wouldn't make less.
And is that feasible to pay them more?
Mm-hmm.
So why haven't we done that thus far?
So pay them more so that they are making the same now in the new. So if they're working what they're working and we increase their pay right now, increase it, that puts a strain on the budget. But if we just keep it the same, they might be working less, but if we keep it the same, it's the same amount of money that we would be spending.
And you're confident that that's attainable?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I understand that part, but if we're not able to make it the same in 4 days, if we lose even more staff?
No. We will not. We will not decrease pay. We will not take away insurance. And that's something that especially our hourly employees have been concerned about, and that's been our consistent message to them. Hi.
Hello again. Quick question about the schools that already do this. So we're 37% free and reduced. A lot of we're a title school, right? So sometimes with like the higher low income areas, like academic performance typically can be a little lower. So are those schools that we looked at the data up there, what are their I guess, economic, or are they similar to us, as, you know what I'm saying, free and reduced wise, or, because I just note there's a correlation between free and reduced and low income areas and academic performance, so they might be showing great growth or a little bit of growth, but that might, it makes a huge difference with that, with learning.
Some of their socioeconomic status numbers are higher than ours, some of them are lower than ours. Yeah, it's a mixed bag.
Okay.
Yep.
The school got rid of the A and B days, and the reason was
and they went to all the classes every day. And the reason for that was because they retain more knowledge. So it really doesn't make any sense to take away a day of learning.
They will still have 4 consistent days of that same instruction. So they'll have all their classes on Monday, all their classes Tuesday, all their classes Wednesday. So when you were doing the AB, you could have an A day, a B day, and then school gets canceled on that A day, and then you have to shift, and then so like you could miss multiple days of a certain class when it was on an every other day schedule. Now that it's an everyday schedule, those kids see their teachers every single day.
The concern that was presented to the board was the 3-day gap between Friday and Tuesday Friday and Tuesday and Thursday and Monday when we switched from block to every day. So you're really kind of going back to that, I think is what her point is.
They'll have that 3-day weekend, but when they come back, they won't be going to one class on Monday, Wednesday, and the other classes on Tuesday, Thursday. They will have 4 consistent days of that class. So the retention and performance in those classes, at least they're seeing their teacher every single day still, and that has been what has benefited our high school students.
So there was a slide that you showed that had a breakdown of what the extra time each day would be, right? And it was broken down by each class, and it was 4 minutes, I think, per class would be added every day to make up and compensate for not being here Friday. Having 3 kids and at one time being a child myself, I understand that 4 minutes doesn't do a lot, right? Do we really think that 4 extra minutes a day is going to compensate for an entire day that they're not going to be in school?
So right now, every Wednesday is early out, and that day has become not perfect for learning. Our kids are here a short day, they get out at 1, and then they go off on their way. So we're basically taking a 4.5-day schedule and turning it into a 4 full-day schedule. So that strange different schedule on that Wednesday is gone now. So it's going to be consistently, all 4 will be the same every single week.
So you really truly believe that 4 extra minutes in each class will equate to what they would learn in an entire extra day in that class, learning 5 days a week?
I do. Mm-hmm.
So basically, regardless of the length of the class, 5, maybe 10 minutes on both sides of it are spent just getting kids to sit down, shut up. So when we switch from AB days to having a class every day, a larger share of each class just became wasted. Because you transition 7, 8 times a day. So there are more points at which time is just wasted. So if you do add that 4 minutes on, then there isn't going to be more transition times. That's not going to be wasted time. I don't really think it would make much of a difference either way. Since you are getting rid of a day, then there are 8 fewer transitions. It's just going into the middle of the class period, so it might actually do something.
I'm going to piggyback on that discussion a little bit, and this is coming from someone where you could convince me either way. But I think when it comes down to a parent, and to convince a parent, it goes off the end of this conversation right here is, I asked my son, he's a junior, how many times a day in class do you get to the last 5, 10 minutes and the teacher's done and you guys just sit and do nothing? And he says, depending on the class, sometimes a lot, sometimes not. But what came to light is Wednesdays are, he says, nothing really happens. We spend too much time in advisory, and if I'm caught up, which I usually am, I sit and do nothing, which goes back with a Wednesday is becoming a lost day. I slept on that, and after you think about it for a little bit, if you could have 4 really good days, that to me might be better than having 4 days that are a little shorter and 1 really wasted day. But as I said, you could convince me either way, but I think it's going to come down to a lot of parents is making sure that there's active teaching time all the time, and if the kids are caught up, they shouldn't be sitting there doing nothing. That maybe should get moved to a Friday morning or something, for those kids to come in and keep kids learning. And if you do that, you're going to make most parents happy.
Yes.
So I'm going to piggyback off of that. I'm Laura Seacrest Nicholson. I'm the instructional coach at the elementary. I've been with the district for 28 years. And just talking about, I'm so excited about a Friday with my teachers and a Friday to do PL and a Friday to have them have time in their rooms to then implement what I've just taught them in the morning and to have that time to make every minute count when they're with their kids. Because what happens in a teacher's life is they have about 50 minutes of planning time a day, and that's to go to the bathroom and do everything you need to do, but also to plan those minutes for kids. And we cram so much stuff into these teachers' lives and have them do so many things, what the state tells us to do and what good teaching tells us to do, that they just run out of time in the day. And so what happens is sometimes kids are sitting for 10 minutes at the end of the day because teachers maybe can't plan the most amazing lesson every single day for those kids. And so what this will allow them to do on those Fridays is to take time to think through what is best practice for kids, to analyze test scores, to look at data, to really do the best that they can do. So those 4 days are amazing days of teaching and learning that's happening. So that is my biggest, and I know there are fears that are out there. There are fears, and we're talking about these, and we'll continue to talk about them. And there's an action team, I mean, that's just looking at all these things, the research that has been done before it's been brought to you, so that they will have answers to your questions. And we're not just going to throw this out to you willy-nilly. They've done the research to really say, is this really even a good idea? But as an instructional coach, I just see huge benefits for teacher learning and student learning then, because what happens, what you want most is for your child to have a good educator in front of them every single day so that they are learning and they are loved and they have a good mental state every single day with your kids. And that's, I mean, we want to think about what are we doing? And when we have 1 applicant to 0 applicants, and we start to hire people that are maybe just breathing, it's not good for our school system. We've got to attract teachers that can do the best.
Laura, I get where you're coming from, but if that's only going to happen on 21 of the 42 Fridays of the school year and the other Fridays are off, that's where I am struggling understanding the change and then the inconvenience to parents who work 5 days a week.
I mean, I think sometimes it's hard for people that are working the 5-day week and stuff to say, oh, well, teachers are going to have 2 days off. But then I also know as a teacher, I never have a day off ever. Like, I have school work to do tonight when I get home from here. Every single night I'm doing schoolwork. On Sundays, teachers are at school. They're doing schoolwork all the time. And so that almost just becomes that bonus of, oh my gosh, I get Friday off so I can go take my kids to the doctor and I don't have to do it during the week, or I can go to the dentist so I don't have to take time, because that's what happens is teachers, are human too. They have to go to appointments. So then that happens during the school day, and then we don't have a sub, and then we have to cover their class. And so then again, it just kind of trickles down to that quality educator who's in front of your kids. And so a lot of schools that I've talked to have said that teacher attendance has gone up, that they're not missing as many days because they're allowed to take those 2 Fridays to take care of family appointments and to take care of life themselves. And Elijah would love a job on Fridays, so if anybody needs a nanny, like the high school kids, like I'm thinking I'd love for him to work every Friday because he's so busy, he doesn't have time right now.
So with what Laura is saying, so I'm a teacher at the high school. it's more about, it's not so much about the hours that you're talking about, it's the structure of it. So aside of your argument, like with the kids' concern, just with the teacher concern is, on our early outs, we meet and we go through something, and then we go back and we don't have time to implement them. And then we have a whole nother week, and unless you have time in your planning period to really go back and adjust that, it's almost lost information sometimes. Or it gets tagged onto something else that we're also learning. So by going and having a full day where we get the instruction, like what she's talking about, then we can go back and practice it amongst our teachers and then by ourselves. So that's more of the structure of that time frame that makes that more beneficial than just the hours, is all I can say on to that.
Am I allowed?
What?
Am I allowed to talk?
You may. Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Mike Compton. I'm the band director. I was one of the maybes on the survey. I was one of the maybes. The minute I heard about this and was reading some of the things about it, I belong to a Facebook band director of Iowa Facebook group, and so I put that out there, and that started a huge bunch of little talk that was happening from band directors all across the state. The Cardinal superintendent is a former band director, and so we had a conversation off that site, and he said his staff, and we're talking just not just teachers, but everybody, would absolutely revolt if they went back to the 5-day, because for the first time, the teachers could plan and implement. His band director could plan a lot better and implement a more complete day so that they didn't have the dead space because they ran out of things or whatever the case may be. But for the first time, a lot of the teachers could go to the dentist, take the kids to whatever. And that is something that was severely lacking, and they didn't really know that it was lacking until they actually got that time. So I do want to kind of piggyback off of what Laura was saying, as well as Steph. So, yeah.
I don't want to speak for every teacher. When we're talking, the whole like mental well-being for teachers has kind of been glanced over and just said as a comment. Speaking for myself, I treat your kids like they're an extension of me and my kids. So when you're doing that every day, all day, and most of us have our own kids or are going to, and this is my husband, he can probably verify some things. To be able to separate yourself when you go home and not have it affect your kids is a big thing. I taught at Xavier for 16 years, and it was easier there because I wasn't living in the town that I lived in. My intention since high school was to come back here and teach because I am so invested in my community, and I was starting to have to choose between my school community or my family community. So I came back here. Are there some things that I've had to learn to adjust to? Yes. But I bring a lot home, a lot. So that day and knowing that maybe people are putting faith in me and wanting me to have that additional day to kind of separate a little bit more is kind of more that mentality. It's not just because we just don't want to deal with your kids another day. It's just having that separation. I understand the concerns. I honestly do. I'm at a benefit where my kids are older. But I just wanted to speak to that point that not everybody always thinks about. I think those of you that are here 100% do think about that because that's why you're here. But there's a large majority of people that don't. They want us to just do it because they've kind of gotten used to it. And hope I don't get in trouble for saying that, but I'm just trying to speak kind of point blank, frankly. I think, like I said, my husband can verify I probably care a little too much. And I think that's the people that we want to have here to continue to work with our kids. And I don't know, that's where I'm going to go with that.
Yeah. These kids that we take care of every day are an extension of our families. They're our kids. We are at 8:20 right now. I'm going to stick around if you have more questions. If you want to come up and ask them, talk to us, we will stick around for a little bit. Otherwise, you are free to leave.